Hey guys, welcome back to another snazzy video, and today we're tackling everyone's favorite topic, pronouns. So part of the reason I decided to do this video is that there's been some confusion with my policy in this, and that some people think that I want to be called he and want to be perceived as a guy, but this isn't entirely the case. While I do present myself in public as a guy right now, it's really only because it's socially easier given school and my other outing. But I don't want to have to go out in guy mode, and while my policy is my presentation should dictate the language used for me, it doesn't mean that's what I want to be called. To be honest, I can't really imagine any actual trans person wanting to be called by their birth gender. However, while it does suck to be seen as a male, I can never actually ask someone to call me a specific pronoun because, as a realist, I know how I look and how I sound, and I expect to be called as such. So, basically calling a spade a spade. So my view on it is that pronouns should be heavily dictated based off of presentation. But another argument I've heard a lot of is pronouns are about respect. When it comes to this argument, I find myself agreeing a lot with Jordan Peterson, and for those of you who haven't seen it, he did a interview type thing with Theron Meyer, which I will link down below so that you can check it out if you want to. But basically within it, he said that people have been telling him that pronouns are about respect. Well, he says that he rejects that response because pronouns aren't inherently about respect. When you see a man on the side of the road, you don't think to yourself, well, that's a guy because I respect him. No, you see him as a guy based on his presentation. Interestingly enough, I hear people use this argument for people like Blair White, saying that because they respect her, they decide to call her she. But I reject this as well because, honestly, if Blair White had the opinions of Riley Dennis, I would still call Blair she because, well, look at her. Blair White, by every sense of the word, is a she in her way that she presents herself. She adheres to certain societal standards that would make you think by first glance that is a woman. However, I still see myself calling other trans women she, even though their presentation is lacking to the extent that of Blair White or really meeting any societal standards of femininity. So I do find myself still calling certain trans women she still, even though I neither respect them nor do they meet a certain threshold in which they warrant actually being called she or her based off their presentation. But instead of it being about respect, it's more out of civility for me. So rather than it being out of respect, I would say it's out of civility that we would ignore that immediate impression based on the presentation of someone's gender, and we would be polite despite that they are not passing in order to basically just be nice to them because we see they're trying at least. So does it mean non-passing trans should be referred to by their desired pronouns and we should just immediately indulge in it out of politeness no matter the presentation? Well, I would argue no. So there are times where I would say no to this, and while I'm not going to go out of my way to be an asshole most of the time, I mean, come on, my name is Smart Asshole, so I would say that there is a fine line where if you aren't putting any effort towards your presentation, then we just say no. An example of this is Danielle Moscato, a trans woman who looks like this. And quite frankly, when the presentation is so lazily done by just cross-dressing a little bit, I'm not going to indulge you in it. I'm not going to pretend that you meet any kind of threshold to warrant the usage of she and her when you're a balding man in a dress, putting absolutely no effort beyond just a dress and some girly shoes. And it's not like I don't adhere to the same thing. I don't look or sound anything like a female right now, and I don't expect anyone to call me something else. So why am I bringing up this person? Well, that's because very recently Danielle got very upset at an Old Navy cashier for calling them sir in the store while wearing, get this, these shoes right here. Because that presentation, man, just top notch. By the way, visibly trans? Sure. Also, what the hell, do you not own another pair of shoes? Anyway, so the difference between Danielle and any tranny that doesn't pass is the level of perceived effort put into that presentation. Perception is reality, and when you present yourself as a man lazily trying to come off as female just by wearing unflattering clothing, you're not going to get what you want. There has to be some effort, something beyond just lazily cross-dressing if a tranny wants to be perceived as the opposite gender. And I wouldn't have as much of an issue with Danielle if they weren't basically trying to say that they should be called this because they're visibly trans. But now to the final part of the video, in that what's it like to actually be called and seen as the birth gender? While I do obviously believe everything I just said, it does still suck to be seen as a guy and to be called he. It's not really a great feeling, and it does add to dysphoria a little bit, but this is at the fault of the individual, not of the stranger. For some, though, it's really not that big of an issue, and there are varied reactions when this happens. However, the SJW crazy screeching is overreaction always. So I don't put much stock into pronouns, as they are just words. It does still suck to be called he and to be seen as he, because it's an indication of my presentation, and well, I don't really like my presentation. This, of course, is to no fault of anyone else but myself, as the only person that's in charge of my presentation is myself, as I am in direct control of that. Now, personally, I can get over it rather easily. However, it is still like someone constantly reminding you of something stupid you did or something embarrassing you've done. It's not great, but it's really not all that bad. But overall, this is less about being called a she and more about being seen as a she that is of importance. And while I appreciate those of you that would still call me she just out of politeness, it is made a little bit more hollow by the fact that I know it's not based off the impression of my presentation, but rather just by being polite. And this is why I have an issue with trans pronoun laws, in that making it illegal to call me a man won't magically make me more of a woman. All it does is force someone to say something that visually isn't true. However, I do anticipate the day where I'll be able to present myself in such a way that I actually basically earn being called she, based off the impression I give. However, that's assuming that I'll actually meet that eventually. There's a possibility I won't, but it's a we'll see kind of thing. But that was my little pronoun video, and I know I've been gone for a little while. School's kind of been kicking my ass lately, but I am going to try to minimize my off weeks as much as possible. But that's all for this video. I will see you guys next time. Love you guys. Bye!